So you spoke about the clash of the two great pseudo-religious ideologies of Marxism and Nazism,
Yes.
especially their clash on the Eastern Front.
Battle of Kursk.
Can you explain the origin of each of these, Marxism and Nazism, in a kind of way that we have been talking about the formation of ideas?
Hegel is to Protestantism what Thomas Aquinas is to Catholicism. He was like the philosopher who took German Protestantism and also Kant and Fichte and Schelling, and he built a philosophical system. He explicitly said this, by the way. He wanted to bridge between philosophy and religion. He explicitly said that. I'm not foisting that on him. He said it repeatedly in many different places. So he was trying to create a philosophical system that gathered to it, I think, the core mythos of Christianity. The core mythos of Christianity is this idea of a narrative structure to reality in which progress is real, in which our actions now can change the future. We can co-participate with God in the creation of the future, and that future can be better. It can reach something like a utopia or the promised land or whatever. He created a philosophical system of brilliance, by the way. He's a genius. But basically what it did was it took that religious vision and gave it the air of philosophical intelligibility and respect. And then Marx takes that and says, that process by which the narrative is working itself out that Hegel called dialectic, I don't think it's primarily happening in ideas. I think it's happening primarily in between classes, within socioeconomic factors, but it's the same story. Here's this mechanism of history. It's teleological. It's going to move this way. It can move towards a utopia. We can either participate in furthering it, like participating in the work of God, or we can thwart it and be against it. And so you have a pseudo-religious vision. It's all encompassing. Think about how Marxism is not just a philosophical position. It's not just an economic position. It's an entire worldview, an entire account of history and a demanding account of what human excellence is. And it has all these things about participating, belonging, fitting to.
But it's very, in Marx's case, it's very pragmatic or directly applicable to society, to where it more naturally leads to political ideologies.
It does. But I think Marx, to a very significant degree, inherits one of Hegel's main flaws. Hegel is talking about all this, and he's trying to fit it into post-Kantian philosophy. So for him, it's ultimately, propositional, conceptual. He, like everybody after Descartes, is very focused on the propositional level, and he's not paying deep attention to the non-propositional. This is why the two great critics of Hegel, Nietzsche and Kierkegaard, they're trying to put their finger on the non-propositional, the non-conceptual, the will to power or faith, and they're trying to bring out all these other kinds of knowing as being inadequate. That's why Kierkegaard meant when he said Hegel made a system and then he sat down beside it, right? And so Marxism is very much it is activist. It's about reorganizing society, but the transformation in individuals is largely ideological, meaning it's largely about these significant propositional changes and adopting a set of beliefs.
When it came in contact with the Soviet Union, or with what became the Soviet Union, why do you think it had such a powerful hold on such a large number of people? Not Marxism, but implementation of Marxism in the name of communism.
Because it offered people, it offered people something that typically only religions had offered, and it offered people the hope of making a new man, a new kind of human being in a new world. And when you've been living in Russia, in which things seem to be locked in a system that is crushing most people, getting the promise in the air of scientific legitimacy, that we can make new human beings and a new world, and in which happiness will ensue. That's an intoxicating proposal. You get sort of, like I said, you get all of the intoxication of a religious utopia, but you get all the seeming legitimacy of claiming that it's a scientific understanding of history and economics.
It's very popular to criticize communism, Marxism these days. And I often put myself in the place before any of the implementations came to be. I tried to think if I would be able to predict what the implementations of Marxism and communism would result in the 20th century. And I'm not sure I'm smart enough to make that prediction, because at the core of the ideas are respecting. I mean, it's with Marx, it's very economics type theory. So it's basically respecting the value of the worker and the regular man in society for making a contribution to that society. And to me, that seems like a powerful idea, and it's not clear to me how it goes wrong. In fact, it's still not clear to me why the hell did this, like with Stalin happen or Mao happen. It's there's something very interesting and complex about human nature in hierarchies, about distributed cognition that results in that, and it's not trivial to understand.
No.
So I mean, I wonder if you can put a finger on it. Why did it go so wrong?
So I think what Ohana talks about in the intellectual history of modernity. Talks about the Promethean spirit, the idea, the really radical proposal, and think about how it's not so radical to us. And in that sense, Marxism has succeeded. The radical proposal that you see even in the French Revolution, and don't forget the terror comes in the French Revolution too, that we can make ourselves into godlike beings. Think of the hubris in that, right? And think of the overconfidence to think that we so understand human nature and all of its complexities and human history, right? And how religion functioned and that we can just come in with a plan and make it run. It's to my mind, that Promethean spirit is part of why it's doomed to fail. And it's doomed to fail in a kind of terrorizing way, because the Promethean spirit really licenses you to do anything, because the ends justify the means.
The end justify the means really free you to do some of basically commit atrocities at any scale.
Ground zero with Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, right? Exactly. And you can only believe in an ends that can justify any means if you believe in a utopia, and you can only believe in the utopia if you really buy into the Promethean spirit.
So is that what explains Nazism?
So Nazism is part of that too. The Promethean spirit, that we can make ourselves into supermen, Ubermensch,